Hey guys, welcome back. Episode 6, and we are 11 weeks out from your Ironman Santa Rosa. So we missed last week. Sorry about that. Hold on, take my extra glasses off. Um, I missed last week. It's been a nasty sort of run of flus and viruses going around here, and at least in Sonoma County, and I finally succumbed to it. So unfortunately, just really wasn't feeling horrible, but between a cough and everything else. And I know a lot of you probably have got some sort of illness and you sort of panic a little with the training, and don't worry about it. Get healthy first. Don't try to train through it. Plenty of time left if you're just coming back from it, and just do your best to stay healthy. And, we talked about the training side of being consistent, and you'll be just fine. So a long way to go still. I've been saying that for a while. There's still a long way to go, but we're getting to the point now. Training starts to become more influential, and the little things start to matter even more than they normally do. So normal format like we've done before. And so keys today, logistics. I'm not talking about training here in Sonoma County. Swim, bike, run, and using the courses to do that predominantly. Some course generalities in terms of logistics and how you can get there, where to start, where to finish type of thing. But also to dealing with just our local people, wildlife, if you want to call it that, our roads, and how that might be different from where you live or where you train, and what to expect when you do that. So that's the first part. And we'll talk the course today. I want to go over the run course. It's pretty benign, but it's worth going over. There's some little intricacies to it, surface changes and things like that will make a difference as you think about it. And then I had some questions that really came back from, and then the training aspect to it. A few weeks ago, I threw something at you called "Where Are You Now?" And not so much where are you in terms of where you located, but where are you at with your training? Maybe where should you be? Where are you? Just to give you a ballpark, I know some people get ahead of the game. They get doing too much too soon, too much distance too soon, and you don't want to arrive at a key point of training already haven't done too much, where you have to sort of back off and regroup, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll do that. And the last piece, we'll deal with some questions. Most of them have come from the bike course, be it my hangout a couple weeks ago, or Dave Reed, your race director, who just did one more recently. So we'll do that. So let's start with logistics. And we'll start with training on the course. That's the biggest thing. So just go order, swim, bike, run. So if you're going to swim, or if you're going to open water swim, first of all, don't even bother trying to swim in Lake Sonoma until April. I don't think there's any reason for it. It's going to be too cold. You're not going to get any quality training in. And even early April, even then, it's probably going to be cold. Lately, we had a good run of warm weather, but cold nights here. So the water temp wasn't getting very warm. We haven't had much rain, so the volume of water in the lake hasn't come up. But lately, it's been cold at night. We haven't been warm during the day, maybe 50s. In the next week to 10 days, we're looking at more of that. Now with some rain coming in, sort of our normal pattern. So ironically, we get a really dry February and late January, and now we're going into March, and we're just going to start to see some rain come in, some colder weather, some windier weather, which is just more typical of winter here. So be patient. I've talked to a couple people who've actually gone up to try and swim. They got their wetsuits on, spent all the time getting up there, and they got in the water and like, wow, it's way too cold. 40s, and you're just not going to get any quality training doing that. So it's not worth it. So that's one thing to think of first of all. Second thing is just use Ironman Santa Rosa, their website, and look at directions. And you're going up to Lake Sonoma. You're going to the main boat ramp, which is just past the bridge on Rockpile Road. You'll pull into the parking lot there, and it's a boat parking lot, so be careful of. It's a lake that sees a lot of boat traffic this time of year, which is fishing more than later in the year. We'll see it as pleasure boat type of stuff, skiing and fishing and just general pleasure. But so when you go up there, it does pay to park. So it is pay to park. So please pay that fee. Don't try and scooch out of there without that. Sometimes there's people at the booth, sometimes there's not, but that money goes directly to the Army Corps of Engineers, and it goes directly into the upkeep of the ramp and the area in the Lake Sonoma area. So it's worth it. Just pay the fee and be honorable in that side of it if you do go up there to swim. And really basically go up there, park, find a nice parking place. It's a huge parking lot. It's where your transition area 1 will be, so you'll get a view of that. And you walk down to the boat ramp. Be careful on the boat ramp. Might want to wear shoes down just because, you know, you're going to have maybe rocks and fish hooks and those kind of things just floating around, so be careful. And then you're going to have a lot of boat traffic, like I said, people putting boats in, pulling them out. So stay way off to one side or the other, probably to the right-hand side of the boat ramp as you walk down. Because when you swim, when you enter the water, stay on that right-hand side. And then once you get off the boat dock a little bit, you're going to veer to the right, and you're going to go down into the cove where the swim course is. It is an active lake, so be careful of boats. If you're going under the bridge, which I assume everyone will be going, you're going into calmer water. So if it's a windy day, it will be calm down there. It's a protected area. It's also tends to be a no wake zone, but I still would tend to stay closer to shore, swim the circumference or the exterior of the lake for whatever you want to do. But again, wait till April. It's cold right now. We're going to do a training weekend, a camp, the second week of April, and even then, we did it last year, and based on weather and if it rains and there's debris in the water, we'll gauge that on the morning of that training camp whether we'll swim or not. We just want a safe environment and be a quality environment. We did it last year and it was cold. So anyway, so there's your swim, and then in terms of cycling, I think there's 2 good options. If you know the roads, there's a lot of ways you can skin it. But I think there's 2 good places to start if you want to ride the course or sections of the course. And I think you can break it into 2 pieces. If you're able to come up twice, I think one of the best ways to do it, if you do want to ride a couple different sections, is 1, start at Lake Sonoma. Start up where the bike course starts. You'll get an indication of how that bike course starts, the descent off of Rock Powell Road, which, remember, on race day, you're going to be riding in the contraflow lane, so the opposite lane of what you would train it in. So some of those corners will be a little bit tighter. So start there and just follow the course. Basically, you would follow the course all the way around until you're going to get to, it would probably be mile 50, 54, 55-ish, which is the intersection of Canyon Road and Dry Creek Road. So following the course, all would go around on the first loop, get to the intersection of Canyon Road and Dry Creek, and instead of staying on the course and going up Canyon, just go straight on Dry Creek Road, and you can ride that all the way back to your vehicle. If you don't want to make that 2-mile climb back up to the boat ramp, you would start by parking your car down below at the visitor center. Either way, it just depends on if you want to finish your ride with that climb. It's going to be, for most people, an 8 to 14, 15-minute climb, depending on how fast you're going up that climb. So that would be the first option. The second option, which you would sort of ride the full second loop, if you want to call it that. Really, the course is, there's only certain parts of the course you ride twice. Would be to park in, it would sort of be the boundary between Santa Rosa and Windsor. You're technically in Windsor. And it would be a place called Esposti Park. It's right on the intersection of the course at Shiloh and Old Redwood Highway. And there's bathrooms there, water fountains there. It's a good place to start. It's a good place to regroup. It's a good place to use bathrooms, whatever you need. So it's a good place to start. And essentially, you pop out onto that course onto Shiloh Road, and then you start that loop, which would be your second loop. That would be approximately, a note here, that would be about mile 50, about mile 40 on the course, the corner of Shiloh Road and Old Redwood Highway, mile 40. And if you do the course exactly from that point around, you'll be on from mile 40, you get back to that point at about mile 93. So that will give you 53 miles. So those would be the 2 logistically the easiest things to do if you're from out of the area and you look at a map and you want to know the best way to do it. And then, excuse me, that would probably be your best case scenario. Now you end up skipping the last 15 or 16 miles, which would be starting at the intersection of Slusser Road and the run-in all the way into town. Which if you come up and do either one of those options or a combination somehow of them, what I would do is drive that last section into town. There's no climbs on it. There's some little rollers. There's some little technical turns you might want to be aware of, some narrow roads, but I don't think it's necessary 100% to ride those pieces. Those are going to be your sort of more trafficy sections, because you're getting more into Santa Rosa to deal with it, and drive it, take a look at it, and get a feel for it. That way, you've seen everything, and you can sort of kill two birds with one stone, ride one section and then drive the rest back in. Now, if you can only come up once, and you want to see the first part of the course, I would start at Lake Sonoma, and then you could ride the course all the way around, ride all the way up Canyon Road to the left-hander on Chianti, and then when you get back to, it's going to be so we're a mile 54, 55 at the bottom of Canyon Road. So you're going to be about mile 60, maybe 65 by the time you get to the end of Chianti, probably a little bit less than that, but mile 65. And then backtrack your way to Lake Sonoma the way that you started. So it'll be like about less than 14 miles back to Lake Sonoma via reverse on Asti and then back on Dutcher Creek. So it'll be a longer ride, which would be fine. It would get you 70 something miles. But that way, other than that last piece, the last 15 miles running into town, you're going to see the entire bike course. You'll see every little bit of it. So if you can only come up once, that will be my recommendation, is to do that. So 3 options there for you to see the bike course. Easier than how it was set up last year, where really the last 45 miles was not really a good section to train on. So there's your bike course for coming and training. Third thing is the run course. My recommendation is just park downtown. If you want to park downtown on a Saturday, on a Sunday, whatever it is. Sunday's less trafficy. Park downtown, metered parking if you need it. There's parking garages, and follow the course. Now, here's the thing: it's a little bit tricky to follow, mainly because you're getting a lot of sections where you're on and off of the creek path. But logistically, just park downtown. There's tons of coffee shops and food for afterwards and stuff like that. So do that. Try and follow the instructions or the turn by turns the best you can. What I would do is make sure you maybe print off something, put it in a pack, or if you run with a water vest or an ultra vest or whatever it is, and that way you can get an idea of it, because none of it will be marked until close to race day. So and I'm going to talk about the run course in a second here anyway. So it's really pretty basic. It's 3 loops, so each loop is 8.7-ish if my math is right, and you can easily adjust it as you need to. So just park downtown, try and follow the instructions. You'll essentially head out on B Street to First, and then over to A, and then you jump on a trail section from there and follow it. And once you get on it from there, once you're on the trail, you should be able to follow. The other thing you can do too is go to Santa Rosa Facebook. Dave Reed did a pretty good job. I think he has some videos on there of the sections of the run course as well. So there's your logistics. I hope it's not too confusing, but take a look at some maps and you can figure that out pretty well. So let's move over to the run course. We've talked about the swim course, talked about the bike course, and the run course. When we look at it, or if you think about it, for the most part, other than the in-town section on surface streets in town, which there's not a ton of that, the majority of it is on some sort of paved, cement, or dirt trail network that runs along the Santa Rosa Creek Trail, or Santa Rosa Creek. And you're going to have a variety of surfaces. So you're going to have pavement, like I said. You'll have cement on one part of what they call the Prince Greenway. And then the Santa Rosa Creek Trail is dirt on one side and it's pavement on the opposite side. And the dirt is anywhere from a combination of sort of crushed gravel. It's not rocky, unless they grade it before, which they haven't in the past. Some of it's just going to be hard packed dirt. Some of it will be a little bit loose, but it's not of a sandy kind of loose. But some of it, you can get it stuck in shoes, whatever it is. So those are your different surfaces. The other thing to consider too, some of the trail is cambered a little bit, and to just be leery of that. There's some sections that are just flat, and some sections have a little slant. So be leery of where you pick and choose to run, and that'll be sort of dynamic as you go, because once you get into laps, you're going to end up with lap traffic on it. So you'll get a feel for it. If you get a chance to come out and do a loop of training on it, you'll get a good feel for that. So different surfaces, which really isn't bad. It really mixes it up. And just sort of, it's good change for your body and good dynamics for your body. Now, when you look at it, the course is predominantly flat. And when we say flat, it's not, sorry about that, it's not pancake flat in that it's just one constant grade. You're going to have some sections where you have to come onto and off of the trail network, which those will be your quote hills for the run. But I think it's great because I think it helps you break up that monotony of flat. It's good for the body's neuromuscular system to go uphill a little bit, even whether you even power walk up the ramps, and then the other side is, I like that if when you come off of the bridges and go back down onto the creeks, is it helps you build a little bit of tempo back into the neuromuscular system, so some speed back into the neuromuscular system. I would sort of kind of let your legs turn over and let it get loose a little bit there, which is a good thing. So don't look at those as like, because you've been so used to running this almost flat section, to come up over those. And then one thing to remember is when you're going west, which will be your outbound, you're going to be going downstream or downhill. It's very minor, but it does make a difference, and you'll feel it. You won't feel it going out because you think you'll just feel good. But when you turn around and come back eastbound, which is back the return section, it's a very gentle grade. It might be 0.5%, but you can feel it. If you look at heart rate versus pace and you do those kind of things, you'll notice it. So be leery that same effort one way may yield a slightly faster pace than coming back in. So be leery of that. You are going 3 loops, almost identical loops. So at the end of the 3rd loop, when you get back to right next to transition area 2, right in downtown where the hot corner essentially will be, where you'll loop back in, you're going to go back past the transition area, and you've got another 1/4 mile to get to the finish. So remember that. So when you come back up, the crowd will be good. You'll be knowing, hey, I'm on my 3rd lap. You're going to make a right-hand turn and go back past the transition area. And then you realize, well, I've got a whole nother loop of this block to get back to 4th Street to get to the finish line. Be leery of that. Just mentally be ready for that. And then the finish is terrific. 4th Street, a lot of spectators, shops. It's a really, really nice finish line, and you'll finish right in front of Courtyard or Courthouse Square, which is downtown, where sort of everything goes on during the week. It's a 3-loop course. It's, like I said, it's benign. There's nothing major about it. It's really about doing the miles, 8 stations every mile. Typical fare at all the 8 stations. We talked about, I answered some of those questions before, with your Gatorade, your waters, your colas, your Cliff Bar products. All of that stuff is out there, well taken care of. They do say they're going to try to improve some of the lighting aspect of it this year. But if you're going to be out there after dark and you're concerned, there'll be some dark sections still. Bring a headlamp. I think it's a good idea, or flashlight, whatever you function better with. So main thing is be consistent, find your rhythm on that course, and break it down into sections. And we'll talk about that, how you might want to break it down when we talk sort of pacing or attacking the course. I'll do a video on that later on. And then beyond that, we'll talk training. So finally, let's talk training. And with the training, I want to go back to that topic we talked before called where are you now? Okay, where are you now in your training? Everyone's in a different point, and we'll maybe have a different plan or a different coach, whatever it is. But we're sitting at about 11 weeks out, minus 2 days. So a lot of training left to be done. And the whole idea is to be consistent. Don't be missing one workout a week just because you don't like it. If you have a distance swim or it's a faster swim, you don't like one of those, don't skip that every week. Keep the consistency, keep the variety in your training as you do it. As you know, the course, especially the bike course, is dynamic. Talk about that in a section to answer some questions. And then, so be consistent just with the training and don't miss the same session all the time. That's key. So swimming, if you're comfortable, if your coach or your plan is calling for 3,000 to 3,400 meters on any given workout, or maybe even you're around 9,000 meters a week, something like that, you're in really good shape. I mean, if your standalone one long swim is at least 3,300 meters or around 3,000, you're in great shape. And we still have plenty of time to build it up if you're behind. I have a couple of athletes who had a little injury or got a little sick, and they're starting to catch back up, and they're going to be fine, and I'm not worried about it. But that just gives you a ballpark. Cycling-wise, if you're comfortable doing 4-ish hours on the bike, 3.5 to 4-ish hours, like a good solid 4, you're in good shape. Maybe a little transition run off the bike if you're doing that. And then your long run, if you're good at an hour and 45 to hour 50, I think you're perfect. So those are your general ballparks. Those are just single workouts, but hopefully you're swimming 3 days a week, you're cycling 3 days a week, and you're running, unless something precludes it, 4 days a week is probably a good, maybe more accomplished athletes are up to 5 days a week with, a lot of shorter runs. But that's the sort of where are you now section that we talked about before. Hopefully you're there. Don't get too far ahead. If you get too far ahead, when it really hits the fan at about 6 weeks, 5 weeks, 4 weeks, 3 weeks out, when we're really hitting the load of training, we don't want to get to that point too tired. If we get to that point too tired, you're going to start missing sessions then, and that's not when we want to miss sessions. If you're going to skip something because you're struggling, do it now. Don't force it in. And then the last thing you can add into is your race day nutrition. We talked earlier about getting used to certain products, find out things you like, you don't like, flavors you like or you don't like, things that you think you can tolerate, solids and gels and blocks and that kind of thing, and sort of start to narrow those things down and start to make decisions. You don't have to do your exact race day fueling every time you go out, but start to narrow it out and just start to take pieces out, say, I don't like that, that's not working, and add things in. So just start to experiment with that, and so as the closer you get to race day, you'll be pretty good. All right, so that's your training side of it. Last thing we'll do, I'm going to answer some questions that have come in, and most of them are relative to the bike course, like elevation, gearing, hills, wind, that sort of thing. And this is all in relation to the bike course being announced. And I'm going to say this to start, and I'll probably say it to finish again. 4,000 feet of elevation gain is approximate. Some people ride it and they'll get 42, and someone will ride it get 38. But in general, that's what it is. There's no really long sustained climbs. People have looked at Dutcher Creek and they say it looks like a long climb, or they look at Canyon Road and it looks like a long climb. Each are long. Canyon is shorter than the other, but they're very gradual. And then and they even drop off to flatter sections in between. So they're very gradual and they both turn up at the top. So there's nothing really substantial in those climbs per se. And then Chalk Hill Road is the other spot that people seem to get worried about. And we've addressed it. It's about 3/4 of a mile long, and it does get steeper at the top. And so here's my point is, if you're fit and you've done your training, okay, and you have the right gearing for riding hills, then you shouldn't have any problem going over any of those hills within the range of your desired intensity. What I see is a lot of people come from somewhere else and they get by with their whatever chain rings they have up front, and they have a 1225 or something on the back, and they say, well, I can usually get over a hill, I can manage with it. And the biggest thing that I've seen is people will say, I don't want to spend the money on a new cassette, or I don't want to spend the money on a rear derailleur to be able to accommodate a certain cassette, so that you have the right gearing. With all the money and all the time and all the energy that you've invested, it's worth investing in the equipment, because that investment for the equipment is for the long haul. It's for the lifetime of that piece of gear. And I think that's probably one of the biggest investments that you can make is that, so that you can preserve your ability to run well by managing your effort over those hills. Your choice of how you do it and if you do it or not. But my recommendation is make sure you get that sorted. That's the biggest thing. So elevation we talked about, that's my thing on gearing. Most people, if you're going to ride over 6 hours, you should have an 1130 on the back, or an 1132, depending on, athlete. And that's with a 50-34 in the front. So beyond that, so you can start to delineate and figure that out as you go. Another thing people asked about was the wind. May is sort of a transitional time of year for us, and typically a typical wind that time of year, because we're not getting a lot of marine layer, which is our fog layer that comes in from the coastal influence, is from the north-northwest, which would mean if it's there, it's a tailwind coming a side road as you're heading north. So but it tends not to be a big wind. Actually, it was a decent wind last year during the 70.3 because a front blew through. But typically that time of year it's not that much, and it's variable. So it's a north-south course, and our wind's going to tend to run north-south that time of year. So whatever you're going to get on one end on a tail, you're going to get on a head, and vice versa. But it tends not to be that big a deal. We can look at forecasts a week out and get a figure on sort of pattern. So anyway, that's it. I'm going to cut you there. Those are some of the questions we had on the bike course in the last section. We're just under 11 weeks out right now, and training starts to get more influential. So stay healthy, stick to it, make some adjustments, hopefully based on some of the things that I've given you, be it training or maybe your equipment, and get it dialed in. Start to narrow your choices down. So thanks for tuning in to episode 6 of the DL. Ironman Santa Rosa is coming. Weather's going to be good in May. It's variable right now, so enjoy your training. And if you have questions, these pop up again on these Facebook pages where you're getting them. Ask questions, touch base with me, and subscribe to the channel. And we'll see you for episode 7 next time. Thanks, guys.